The last time I saw him before everything went to hell, Jake was watching the sunrise with his new squeeze. He said to the kidnappers, like it was no big deal, yeah, just leave her tied up. No rush. She needs to learn a lesson, stop bugging me. It's for the best, honestly. To stay alive, I had to strip myself bare, cling to the boss of these goons, and beg him with a shaky voice, I'll do whatever you want, just don't kill me. Later, when Jake finally decided to come rescue me, the boss just laughed, looking down at me, passed out in his arms. She's worn out. Doubt she's got the strength to go anywhere with you. The roar of the ocean, amplified through a cheap speaker, echoed in the rundown warehouse. Jake's voice was so casual, with this tipsy, lazy vibe, like he was just chilling. Okay, Jamie, this is a new low in your whole getting my attention game. First, you get my mom to try and force my hand into a wedding. Now, this kidnapping charade? If you want to off yourself, go ahead, just don't ruin my date with my girl to watch the sunrise. Jake. Tears of terror streamed down my face, dripping on the rope binding my wrists and ankles. I shook my head, desperate to make him understand. I'm not acting. I'm not making this up. I didn't know your mom was gonna call the media and announce our engagement out of nowhere. Please, just believe me this time. Please come get me. Oh, save you? Sure, yeah, okay, Jake scoffed and said, all drawling and detached, 5 million, is that it? I got it. The kidnapper on the phone, a gravelly-voiced dude, jumped in quick. 5 hours, the old docks by the pier, cash in hand, and wheel. Oh, forget about the release part. Just leave her tied up, don't worry about getting her out right now. Jake was all dismissive and mocking. She needs to learn a lesson, stop bugging me. It's for the best, honestly. Are you serious? The 3 guys on the other end were looking at each other, sounding confused. Jake let out this short, hard laugh that had something nasty under it. If you even lay a finger on her, I'll pay. Consider that a bonus for your trouble. The tears kept coming, and I closed my eyes, feeling just plain awful. Jake, you hate me that much? Jake, I cried, still pleading. I'm really kidnapped. I don't need to learn my lesson. If you just come save me, I'll never bother you again, I swear. Babe, the sun's up. A bubbly, bright voice suddenly cut through the speaker. The girl, all happy and sweet, yelled, it's so beautiful. Oh. The sounds of kissing, the squish and smack, were crystal clear on the phone. They must be in the middle of an intense makeout session. Gross. Despair washed over me. I gave up, completely done. I sat there on the concrete floor, staring at the ring on my finger. The only damn thing Jake ever gave me. And I actually laughed. Turns out promises made when you're young don't mean anything, huh? Jake, who, at 16, swore he'd marry me, protect me forever. How did he change so much along the way? Sorry, Jake, I mumbled, tears still running. I was wrong. For annoying you all these years. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. It won't ever happen again. The call went dead for a split second, then abruptly ended with a dull dial tone. The 3 goons looked at each other, the youngest one scratching his head. Yo, is that dude gonna help or not? Like, when he says, if you lay a hand on her, doesn't that sound like a threat to us? The guy they called Tony bared his teeth. I don't care what he means. We want the money. She's their official fiancé, right? Like, what they announced on the news yesterday. If we get a video of her, we're golden. Jake'll pay up, no problem. Tony pulled a white handkerchief out of his pocket and, without warning, clamped it over my nose and mouth. This weird, sweet smell hit me, making me dizzy. My shirt ripped as Tony's voice growled from overhead. No more BS, let's have some fun with her. But Tony, the young one, sounded uneasy. We were just gonna hold her for a couple of days. Now Jake's not in any rush. I'm worried if we do this too long the boss will get wind of this. Tony tossed a cigarette on the floor and cursed. Who cares if he finds out? You believe that crap about him going straight? He's just saying that to look good, he's still playing dirty. If he ever does find out, we can just give her to him to play with. Dude's way better at making someone learn a lesson than we are. Oh, is that so? The warehouse door slammed open, and a tall, imposing figure in a dark coat entered. A couple of burly-looking security types stood behind him. The newcomer's light eyes swept over the group with a mocking smirk. Maybe you guys should just try to learn how I make my point. The three kidnappers went stiff, dropping to their knees in a panic. Be boss, Tony stammered. Tony pointed to me, desperate. We got you a piece, man. A real hot one. Look. We already gave her the goods, she's good to go. The new arrival's eyebrows pulled together, his eyes flicking to me, something dark flickering in them. He had this unbelievably handsome face, but I felt my skin prickle with pure dread. Even though my body was getting hotter by the minute, I shivered and tried to curl into a ball away from him. He saw me and quirked an eyebrow. Then he squatted down, right in front of me, pulled out a switchblade. His voice was so cold, it cut deeper than that blade. This is gonna hurt. Deal with it. Time to go. Go, where the hell does he think I'm going? No, don't kill me. I totally lost it, and my instinct to survive gave me guts. My bound hands gripped him tight, looking up at him with teary eyes, pleading, please, don't kill me. I'll find a way to pay, I promise. I really don't want to die right now, please. He looked down at my hands on his arm, paused, then raised an amused eyebrow, voice deep, why don't you want to die now? Is that really the point? Still, I had to answer. Well, I mumbled, because they just announced that they are encouraging people to have more kids. And younger folks don't want any. If I die now, there's a huge chance I'll end up in one of these super traditional families who want like 3 kids. I haven't even had any fun. If I die now, that's just wrong. The man just looked stunned. His lips did this tiny smile thing. But I was too freaked out to notice. Because the heat was rushing through me, getting stronger. Scared of dying or getting messed with by a bunch of guys, I quickly ran through my options. Then, taking a deep breath, I leaned in and kissed him, softly. I'll do as you say, I won't fight. Anything you want. The whole place went dead silent. His eyes went completely dark and he said nothing. I saw a tiny glint of hope. I lifted my bound hands and wrapped them around his neck. And kissed him again. But he gently took my neck in his hand and pulled me away, our eyes locking, his so intense. I wasn't planning to kill you. You can bail out right now. I can find another guy for you. If you come with me, there's no going back. The heat was making me dizzy. I cuddled closer, whispering, I'll go with you. I won't regret it. If I'm gonna lose my dignity, I might as well do it with someone cute, right? Next thing I know, our mouths were locked. He pulled me in closer. The water pounded in the shower, echoing in the hotel bathroom. Our breathing, the little moans, kept making the heat go up. My hands were above my head. He was leaning me against the wall, completely taking over. His fingers left the moment to toy with the ring on my finger, his lip curling, engaged, and still trying to get with me. You really think I'm some sort of decent person? MMMH. I could barely open my eyes in the hot water. I was so exhausted, so out of it. Not engaged. Ring, don't, want. Figures, virgin? He leaned down, voice low, and pulled off the ring. No need for it now. It's gonna go back to him. My hands dropped down and I slumped, grabbing the nearest thing, his back. I moaned, barely making sense. Call me Kane, he said, like a command, call me Kane. I screamed as I gripped at his back, Kane. Jake, sweetie. The chick was draped all over him on the beach lounger, whining a little because he was spacing out. Then she leaned in, trying to get a kiss. Jake just turned his head away, like he couldn't be bothered. He frowned at the phone on the side table, the screen dark. Jamie, just call me again. One more call, and I'll believe you. Dude, you've been checking your phone like 20 times in 4 hours. You okay? If you're so worried about her, go check on her. His buddy, Leo, was watching him from the next lounger over, shaking his head. You got her hooked with that whole marry me thing when you were kids. Then you grew up and turned into this cold-hearted player who hates when she bugs you. You've been with a ton of women, you know? Your mom's freaking out and trying to use the media to get you to settle down. That's normal. Jamie probably didn't even know about the media thing. And, like I've told you a million times, people's feelings change. No one waits around forever. You can't keep banking on that sweet talk you used when you were kids, man. It won't last forever. Don't wait until you've pushed her too far, and she's gone, then try to cry about it. Jake's fingers froze for a split second. He looked down, silent for a moment, then just snorted. I'm not going to regret anything. Spending your life stuck with one person is boring. I hope she leaves, honestly. She just needs to stop clinging to what we had when we were little kids. I'm so over it. Leo frowned. He was about to say something when Jake just stood up, popped open a bottle of champagne, the foam flying in the air as he walked over to the party happening on the beach. Leo rolled his eyes and muttered douchebag under his breath. A shadow fell over him. Leo blinked in confusion and saw Jake coming back, looking like he was being dragged by the devil. Jake grabbed his phone, his face was as hard as stone. The second the screen came on, the ringer went off. Oh great, it was his mom. She was probably going to try to get him to apologize and make up with Jamie. Jake frowned, about to cut the call when his mom's worried voice came on. Honey, can you get a hold of Jamie? She hasn't called me back in 3 days. Is she okay? The buzz from the alcohol faded away immediately. Jake sat up straight, his face all tense. She hasn't called back? The memory of the kidnapping phone call hit him. Is she still messing around? Jake's lips turned into a thin line as he hit the dial button. He didn't know what he was feeling. There was worry, yeah, but it was also annoyance, like, Jamie's going too far, again. Hello? The call connected quickly. But, the voice that answered wasn't hers. It was a stranger's, low and rough. Jake just froze. His heart just plummeted. The assistant was quick with the pictures. Jake only needed one look to know the ring. It was the one he had given her when he asked her out, or rather, proposed when they were 16. Jamie had always worn it, like it was the most important thing. Jake felt a weird flutter in his stomach. But then, anger washed over him, he scoffed and started typing into his phone. Guess the fake kidnapping act wasn't working anymore. So now you are trying to play the make me jealous card? Jamie, you gave the ring back, we are done. Don't bother me again. The text went out, and it didn't come back. Usually she would reply immediately, but this time, there was nothing. Jake scrolled through their messages, feeling frustrated. It was all one-sided, with Jamie sending him a bunch of stuff. He smirked, of course she liked him. This was just another act. He needed to teach her a lesson. Jake turned his phone off, and cut her off from a chance to ask for forgiveness. Then he jumped up, and started shaking a new bottle of champagne. Pop! The bubbly liquid went everywhere. Then Jake smashed the bottle on the ground. He turned around, grabbed the girl by his side, and laughed. I feel great, man. More booze. When I woke up the next day, Kane wasn't in the room. I had never been kidnapped before, and I had no idea what happened after you slept with your captor. Was I just supposed to wait for them to get their money? Or was I just going to be his for life? Or maybe, looking around at the empty room and my unbound limbs, could I just go? The clothes on the floor were ripped, my shirt and stockings were all messed up. I picked up Kane's shirt and put it on, then went to the door, trying to be as quiet as possible. Then, I heard Kane's mocking laugh from the patio. Those 3 guys were your underlings, not mine. As far as I am concerned, they don't answer to me, they still owe their loyalty to you. Beating them half to death was easy. The patio door slid open. Kane walked in without realizing I was there. He took the phone from his ear, he sounded pissed. Kane's smile was icy. Dad, don't forget, I am the one in charge. If they break my rules, I will scatter their ashes. You better stay in your place. He hung up the phone and saw me. He froze for a few seconds, then his face softened, his eyes lit up with amusement. Did you think you could just use me and then try and run? I jumped, shaking my head. And no, I wasn't running. I had finally remembered who Kane and the Kane family was. A top-tier criminal family, whose deals were full of violence and a lot of blood. I had messed with a dangerous man, and trying to run was just stupid. Being good was probably the best move. Kane raised an eyebrow and walked over to me, step by step. I was pinned to the wall, and there was nowhere to run. His eyes flicked over my bare legs that poked out of the shirt, then he grabbed me and lifted me up. He made me step on his shoes. There are a ton of bodyguards outside. You gonna try and walk out of here looking like that? You are not trying to run, you want to die. I wasn't stable at all. I held onto his neck and leaned against the wall and tried to bargain with him. My parents are scientists, they are in the middle of nowhere, with no signal. They're super respected, but they aren't rich. If they had to come pay for me, it would take forever. Kane looked a little shocked, then laughed. If you are with me, you won't lack money. I paused, thinking. So, if he wasn't asking for money, I was going to be with him forever? I've never been with anyone. I don't really know how this works. Do I have to stay here? Or? I was kissed. Kane's lips were so soft, and he was smiling. Do you know how to date? I just stared, huh? Then, I was lifted up again. Kane walked over to the bed and sat me down. Leaning in, he whispered. We'll just do things like a real couple. Jake finally turned his phone on, 3 days later. 3 days of craziness. The whole place looked like a hurricane had passed, with bottles and plates everywhere. He pulled his phone out from the couch. Jake turned it on, slumped on the couch, and waited for the notification sounds to finish. A ton of texts, it was probably all Jamie. Every little thing, she would just text. It was so annoying. She was probably gonna write him a novel. The sound finally stopped, and Jake clicked on the screen. Just then, the phone rang, and he picked up the call. He looked at the screen, it was his mom. She probably had been pulled into the fight and wanted him to make up with Jamie. Jake frowned, about to say something, when his mom said, Honey, can you get a hold of Jamie? She hasn't called me back in 3 days. Is something going on? The buzz from the alcohol faded a little. Jake jumped up and frowned. She hasn't called? The memory of the kidnapping phone call crashed into his mind. Is Jamie still playing games? Jake made a thin line with his lips and called her number. He couldn't put his finger on how he was feeling. He was scared, but also annoyed. Hello? The call was picked up right away. But it wasn't Jamie, it was a deep male voice. Jake froze. His heart dropped. 3 in the morning. A stranger answered Jamie's phone. That just locked everything down, she'd been kidnapped. Panic gripped him, his hands balled into fists, and his voice was tense. Where's Jamie? Let me talk to her. Did you hurt her? Just tell me where you are, I'll be there to pay. The man on the phone was silent for a second, then he chuckled, which didn't really make things any better. His next words were soft, she's all worn out. She's not going anywhere. Jake jumped up, completely flipped out. His eyes went wide, face turning red. He yelled, and kicked the coffee table across the room. Did you lay a hand on her? I told you I'd pay. Who gave you permission to touch her? The people in the house stood still, like they were frozen. They just looked at Jake, who seemed to have gone completely berserk. His neck went rigid, with all the veins sticking out, his face was turning red. He was holding it together barely. He took a deep breath to cool down. How much? Where do I send the money? Kane looked down at me, sleeping in his arms. He remembered my sad little face when I said I didn't have money to pay. A small smile played on his lips. 5 million. Her bank account is fine. I found out the next day that I was ransomed. Kane was standing near the bed, buttoning up his sleeves. He was cool, just handed my charged phone back to me. It came back last night. You were asleep. I picked up a call from your old flame. I managed to get about 5 million in allowance out of him. My eyes went wide, staring at the phone. The screen was filled with over 100 missed calls from Jake. Kane saw the number, just lifted an eyebrow. Guess I am a good conversationalist. He seems happy to call again, for some reason. Huh? Kane took his jacket off the chair, throwing it over his shoulder, the perfect picture of broad shoulders and a slim waist, making my face burn. I thought back to the things that had gone down in the past couple of days. Kane saw, smirked. Then he leaned down and kissed my head. Don't go looking at me like that. Or, I might have to stay. My face went even redder. Kane ruffled my hair, then he said, tell your ex-boyfriend hi. Well, that's nice, big man, right there. Then, his voice dropped, if he tries to rekindle anything with you, I'll scatter his ashes. Me. Those 3 guys had been dealt with, sure. But, they had been Kane's guys. It'd get messy if they were brought up. So, he couldn't really come with me. I had to get my own way back. I didn't go back to my place. I went to Jake's mom's first. My parents, they're scientists and all, they're in the middle of nowhere, not getting cell signal. I basically grew up with Jake, getting looked after by Jake's mom. Jamie, you're okay, you're home. Mrs. Taylor was teary-eyed, she looked guilty. Jake sat on the couch, quiet, not a word. He had been staring at me the second I came into the room. His dark eyes were red, and he looked like he had been through hell. His mom yelled his name a couple of times, he didn't even flinch, so she gave up and apologized. Jamie, I am so sorry, this was completely my fault. I was just trying to get him to propose. I didn't think it'd get you kidnapped. They just wanted the money, thank God. If something had happened to you, your parents would never forgive me. The sofa made a loud bang. Jake, who hadn't moved, seemed to have been triggered by something. He suddenly jumped off the couch and grabbed my arm, hauling me upstairs. His hands were freezing cold, like ice. I tried to pull away, but he wouldn't let go. Jake, let go of me. Jake didn't listen. He pulled me up to the second floor, shoved me in the guest bathroom. He locked the door, his voice cold, hand shaking, take a shower. Jake, what's your damn deal? I was lost, I tried to push him back, I was clean, I didn't need to take a shower. Jake jerked back, eyes locked on mine. Where is he? I just blinked, confused. Who? Jake's neck went rigid, his face twisted, like the name was full of rage. The goon who picked up the phone? I almost giggled, I pulled away, he was my rescuer, not a kidnapper. Huh, Jake's face went red with anger. He was in your bed. He had to touch you? I didn't get what Jake was so mad about. Was that a surprise? I scoffed. I was kidnapped, not going to a resort. I am lucky I didn't die there. I was lucky to be saved. Lucky the goon had been Kane. Lucky he showed up that night. Lucky he wanted me. When I had said those words, Jake seemed to fall apart, then he changed. The anger drained, and he looked lost and confused. I didn't know, for real. I thought it was an act. I thought they were here to threaten you into marrying me. If I knew. I scoffed, cutting him off, feeling empty, remembering that night. You didn't know? Wasn't it you that told them to teach me a lesson? This was just a simple ransom thing. You let it turn into an excuse for them to treat me like garbage. Lucky I got saved, because I'd be messed up, and some videos would be circling the internet by now, right? Jake, I finally got the point. I swear, I'm not gonna bother you again. Jake seemed to be having a tough time with that. His face was pale, and the anger faded away, replaced with something empty and weak. His face went rigid, and then he took a breath, like he was letting it all go. Just forget it, Jamie. Forget you were kidnapped, forget about that guy. Forget about. His voice cracked. He took a breath, looked away, and said, "It's like it never happened. If you wanna marry me, you can. I can't give you love or commitment, but I can give you anything else." For a second, I thought I had misheard. Was Jake being reasonable? Had he forgotten that it was him that hit on me first? He asked me to marry him when he was 16, not 6. When he grew up, he just casually ignored it. He never thought how I felt when I just gave him my heart. It's like being a stray dog that had been taken in and then tossed out. Confused, guilty, sad. You can't go back to being a stray. And because of my feelings, I started to beg for him. To try and get back the comfort I once felt. And this puppy sometimes wondered. Maybe I shouldn't have been taken in, shouldn't have had anyone pay me attention. No, thanks. I felt angry, sad, and helpless. I felt so done. I looked down and smiled softly. Don't force yourself. I've given up. I won't love you or bother you. You can live your life. I felt it, every single word. Jake seemed to be mad I was agreeing with him. His eyebrows pulled together, he was annoyed and rude. That's easy for you to say. You won't bother me? You're lying to yourself. Don't fake it, I didn't say I wanted you to go. I can't give you love, but it's not like. My eyes fell onto my finger. I used to wear a ring there. It had only been gone for 3 days, but it didn't leave a mark. It was like the hopes and dreams I held close for so long. Jake, I can. Jake's eyes narrowed. He kept staring at me a few seconds. Then, he smirked, like he knew I was about to crash and burn. Yeah, okay. I better, I smiled to myself. Otherwise, someone will scatter my ashes. After that day, I kept my distance from Jake. I didn't text him. I didn't watch his every move. I didn't show up just to see him. I even skipped the parties when he was around. Mrs. Taylor had noticed that I was not around. She texted a few times. But then she gave up. Guess you weren't my daughter-in-law. A month and a half later, on Christmas, Leo went to my pottery studio. He watched me teach the class with a smile. Jamie, you sure about this? You ain't chasing that idiot anymore? I rolled my eyes. You're not with your wife, why are you here? She'll run off again. Leo made a sour face and threw a lump of clay at my apron. I came here for my friend. And she's being annoying. Then, he tapped his hands together and pulled something out from his pocket. A card, pink with a beautiful handwritten name. His wife was the one who wrote it, she's a calligrapher. It's my 3rd wedding anniversary. Jake'll be there. Just go, or don't, whatever. Leo then took a bunch of roses and was about to go when he stopped. He turned back and looked at me. Jamie. Jake feels it for you. He acts like everything is normal, but he just stares at his phone, waiting. I'm not trying to make excuses. But you've been trying for so long and now you're giving up. It seems like a waste. Just think about it, that's all I'm saying. If you want to move on, I'll set you up on a date now. The door slammed open, and the little bell tinkled. Kane, in a black jacket, entered, snow on his shoulders. Excuse me? Kane walked in, his voice cold. Leo just stood there, staring, then moved away, apologizing. But just before leaving, Leo did a double take, staring at Kane and frowning. I've seen him somewhere. It's snowing? I looked at the window and smiled. Snow on Christmas, it's kinda beautiful. Yep. Kane didn't say anything. Then, he leaned in and quickly kissed me. He was freezing. I was stunned, my eyes popping out. I hit him, gently, on the arm. I looked like a crazy woman. What do you think you are doing, with people around? Kane smirked, I'm your hidden boyfriend. I have to sneak kisses, just so I don't waste time when I introduce you to someone. Me. I'm not trying to hide you. I've been with him for a month. I've just been avoiding people, to avoid Jake. The clock on the wall showed it was 6 p.m. I made a face and told the class to pack up. When the last student was picked up, it was almost dark. The streets lit up for Christmas, it was romantic. Kane wrapped me in his arms. His lips touched my ear, his voice low. The mood is on. Wanna sneak off for a date? My girlfriend. Please. 10:10 at night, I posted on my profile. Merry Christmas. To my secret, clingy boyfriend. And I added a picture of Kane and I holding hands. Leo finally remembered who Kane was. Kane, the young CEO of the Kane Group. He cleaned up the family business in a couple of months. And now, he was leading the Kane Group. Why was such an important man in Jamie's tiny pottery studio? The phone buzzed, the group chat had gone wild. Oh my god, Jamie posted her boyfriend. And the background? Looks like they're in bed. 10 at night, is she sleeping with him? Is it Jake? No, Jake was here, and he was sad, waiting for a text. The chat fell silent. Then someone typed. Is he waiting for Jamie? The message sat there. No one said a word. Leo felt awful. He went to Jamie's profile. He saw a ring on her finger, oh no. The jerk finally did it. I didn't open the studio on the weekend. I went to Kane's apartment, then to a shopping mall. I bought a present for Leo and his wife. And I bought a tie for someone else. Ding! The elevator opened to my floor, and I went to go out. But a dark figure pushed me against the wall of the elevator. I cried out, but he was already kissing me. MMF? I could feel the alcohol on him. Jake's eyes were red as he was kissing me, his teeth sinking into my lips. Stop, MMF, stop. I pushed Jake away, but he held on to me. As his tongue forced my teeth open, I bit down. Ouch! Jake finally let go. I ran. But he grabbed my arm. What, am I gonna eat you? Jake yelled. I threw the bags at his head, were you okay? Yes. Jake kicked the bags away. His chest rose and fell, eyes wide with rage as he stared at my ring. Where were you? Why weren't you at home? I was so confused. What does it matter? Jake trembled, he covered his face, eyes wide. Who is he? It was a familiar question. I looked at him, silent. Jake seemed to realize, his face going pale. He swayed on his feet, reaching for the wall. Did he force you? No, we are together. Jake closed his eyes, then they opened, hurt. Break up with him. You want me, right? I'm here, I can pretend everything didn't happen. Jake took a breath. Jamie, you won. I miss you. We can be together, and I won't look at anyone else. Oh, that makes sense. He thought that I posted about it just to make him jealous? Jake, I'm not you. I know what my heart wants. I'll chase after you openly and honestly. I won't play games. Jake went pale. He didn't make a fist or do anything. His eyes read, it's impossible. You love me. How can you just be with someone else? I smirked at him, you know. Love when you're a kid doesn't matter. I didn't want to talk to him, so I went to my door. The code beeped, then the door went open. And that's when I heard his voice. Please, now I love you. Let me chase after you. I turned slowly, confused. Now you want it? Now he wants to start over? Jake looked broken. I never loved you. Or, I never knew I loved you. Leo was right. He did it. He said he never would regret anything. But he saw me holding another's hand and he wanted to destroy everything. I was his. He had me all that time. Now he couldn't have me. Why don't adults know what they want? They just play dumb. Love after you find out that you can lose them. Kane was by the elevator, arms crossed. He was wearing jeans and a sweater. It looked good. Kane, just by showing up, sent Jake into a rage. He had realized that the man on the phone that night was also the man before him. Kane. Fancy seeing you here. Kane smirked. Hey, jerk. Jake went pale. Kane ignored the look on his face, his eyes falling onto the boxes on the floor, then to the tie that was still on the ground. He looked at me and grinned. Mine? An announcement gift? I rolled my eyes. No. Oh, Kane answered. Then he picked up the tie, put it around his neck, and went over to me. Tie it for me. I rolled my eyes, and then grabbed him and walked into the apartment. Why are you wearing a tie with a sweatshirt? It makes me look hot. The door closed. I didn't turn around, but I could hear the empty words. You learned that for me. Because Kane was glaring at everyone, I went to Leo and his wife's party. Kane came too. He looked handsome in his suit. Leo came up and smiled. Hi Kane, I'm Leo. Kane smiled back. Hi, I do like that tie. Jamie got it for me when she told everyone we were dating. Me. Kane sure could talk. He was really holding onto that grudge. Leo probably had no idea. It was because of what he said about helping me find someone new. The party was in full swing. I found a corner and ate a piece of tiramisu, watching Leo cry with his wife. It's funny. Leo was a jerk. But he somehow managed to win her back. Someone was standing beside me. I knew who it was. I had expected it. Jake looked decent. But he was tired and red-eyed. Jamie. Jake called me. He looked at the couple dancing, and he showed me his hand. A ring was there. His hand was red, because he had squeezed it tight. Marry me, please? Sorry. I'm so late. I'll treat you right. You'll be the only one. I put the fork down. I wasn't hungry. I took the ring and turned around, then opened the door. The ring did a loop in the air and landed in the pool. Jake swayed. His face was pale, his mouth moving. Jamie, I found it. I found it, can you? Jake, I cut him off. You're trying too hard, again. Don't try so hard, and leave me and Kane alone. Jake stopped. I also stopped. I looked down and saw the ring. The sun was shining on it. Cain wrapped me in his arms. His hand brushed my ring. If you wear my ring, you're mine forever. If you try and run away, I smiled, I'll scatter the ashes. Because of Jake, Cain and I had to leave. Don't you wanna go home? I looked at Cain, who was looking at the GPS, confused. No, the mood is good. We're going to the beach. I believed Cain. Yeah, the beach. He didn't say the beach before sunrise. In the car, cough. When things got heated, Cain held up my hand. Then, my finger felt cold, something slipped onto it. Leo called at sunrise. I was exhausted, my voice thick. Hey, Leo? It wasn't Leo, it was another friend. Jamie, come see Jake. He tried to find the ring in the pool for hours. He's sick and burned out. Please come. You guys were close. Go check up on him. I pulled my lips into a thin line, and I said, is he awake? Let me talk to him if he is. A few seconds passed. Then Jake, weak and sad, his voice cracking. Jamie, I got the ring. I got it, you can. Jake, I said, you're trying too hard, again. Leave me and Cain alone. The call stopped. I stopped. I looked down and saw the ring on my finger. It was shining bright. Cain wrapped his arms around me. His hands brushing over the ring. If you wear my ring, you're mine forever. If you try and run, I smiled, I'll scatter the ashes.